The Overseas Telecommunications Commission Earth Station at Ceduna, South Australia. The installation completes Australia's world satellite communications network, a $4 million project that brings the world to Australia via a satellite over the Indian Ocean. The station is Australia's fourth. There's one in New South Wales and two in Western Australia already. Surrounded by desert, the Ceduna installation is the first to face west towards the Indian Ocean satellite. Inside, engineers prepare to receive the first signals as the station gets ready for a worldwide link-up as an opening ceremony. It can handle all types of communications traffic and colour and black and white television. It provides links with Britain, Indonesia, Europe, Africa, the Middle East and Asia. As night falls, the official opening gets underway. There are speeches by the operations manager, Mr. Edgar Appleton, and Councillor Kentel of Ceduna before the guests see a live telecast coming to them via space. The Ceduna Earth Station and the Intelsat satellite combine to bring Australia an instant world. Here, for instance, is a test match being played in South Africa. Ceduna makes it possible for Australians to see world events as they actually happen. And now the Postmaster General, Mr. Hume, officially opens the Earth Station, an important link in Australia's communications network. Kingsford Smith Airport, and the sun breaks through as the Queen is welcomed to Australia by Sir Roden and Lady Cutler. The Prime Minister, Mr. Gorton, and the Premier of New South Wales, Mr. Askin, are here too with their wives. The Queen and Prince Philip soon show that this is to be no stuffy and official royal visit. They set the pattern of informality as they walk through the big crowd at the airport. 8-year-old legacy ward Patricia O'Donoghue has her big moment as she presents a bouquet. Prince Charles and Princess Anne arrive in another plane. It's Anne's first major royal tour, but she's immediately friendly and informal. And so the royal visit has begun. A royal visit in Australia's bicentenary year. Sydney's weather is unkind. The royal show opens in sunshine, but there's a heavy shower just before the royal party arrives. The Queen and Duke watch the ring events, and then to the wood chopping arena. The Queen is seated beside Mr. Vincent Fairfax, President of the Royal Agricultural Society. Despite intermittent showers, the royal tour of the showground continues. Tourism Minister Willis and Director Rod Murdoch escort the royal party through the Pacific Panorama Pavilion. And then there's another informal talk with the crowd, and Prince Philip has a joke with a young gentleman sporting a beard. The Queen and the Duke go inland too to see the big mining complex at Mount Isa. The Duke went underground to look at the workings, and the Queen saw some of the machinery on the surface. A glimpse of some of Australia's mineral wealth and what's being done with it. Then to Cooktown, where they're met by the Minister for Tourism, Mr. Herbert, and Mrs. Herbert.
These have been memorable weeks, and it has been particularly fascinating to be able to take part in the celebration of this bicentenary year with you, and to pay tribute to the founders of modern Australia. But in spite of this emphasis on history, it is impossible not to be caught up in the spirit of Australia as it is today, in its vitality, its enthusiasm, in your determination as Australians, and in your pride of achievement.
And south to Kurnell, to the landing place where James Cook stepped ashore 2 centuries ago. They're escorted by Premier Askin as they come ashore to watch the reenactment of the birth of Australia.
This year's celebration of Captain Cook's arrival on the East Coast 200 years ago marks a really notable landmark in Australia's history. This bicentenary is being celebrated in different places over a period of nearly 3 years, from August 1968 to July 1971. For that was the time Endeavour took to circumnavigate the globe. But it was on this day, 200 years ago, that Cook made his landing here. He was one of the greatest explorers, navigators, and seamen the world has ever known. In little more than 10 years, he discovered and charted the geographical secrets of the South Pacific and gave to this coast the name New South Wales.
And at night over Sydney Harbour, $30,000 worth of fireworks in a spectacular display. There are sombre moments too on this royal tour. One of them comes as the royal party watches the Anzac Day March in Canberra, the nation's capital. Her Majesty and the Duke stepped forward to lay a wreath of remembrance, a tribute to men who fought in many wars to keep Australia free. 11,000 people watch as they place red velvet poppies on the stone of remembrance and then see them escorted to the War Memorial, where Victoria Cross winners are presented to the Queen. The Duke takes time off in Canberra to play a game of polo and shows he's a first-class player. The Duke scores 2 goals to help his team to victory. Almost time to say goodbye. The Queen's last official duty on this tour is to declare open the new international terminal at Mascot. The royal plane is waiting on the tarmac. It will be the first to fly out from the terminal. And so, sadly, thousands of people watch the royal family depart. This royal tour has been the greatest ever. The Queen, the Duke, Prince Charles and Princess Anne have really met the people. There's been some ceremonial, but the royal family have gone out of their way to talk to Australians everywhere. Reluctantly, we say au revoir to them and share the Queen's wish that it won't be long before she and her family return.
I must say how much I have appreciated the kind and generous welcome that you have given to my husband and myself and to our 2 elder children while we have been with you. The Governor-General, the Prime Minister and the Federal Government, the governments of New South Wales, Tasmania, Victoria and Queensland have been wonderful hosts, and everywhere and every day we have been delighted to see the happy and smiling faces of the men, women and children of Australia.
Australia awaits the arrival of the spiritual leader of the world's 600 million Roman Catholics, His Holiness Pope Paul VI. It's a fine, sunny and warm last day of spring as the DC-8 jet arrives at Sydney's Kingsford Smith Airport in the late afternoon. The Pope has described his visit as a pilgrimage, and it's the first time that a reigning pontiff, the head of the Vatican State, has ever visited Australia. First to greet His Holiness is the Governor-General Sir Paul Hasluck and Lady Hasluck, followed by New South Wales State Governor Sir Roden Cutler. Australia's Archbishop, Cardinal Sir Norman Gilroy, the 8th most senior cardinal, greets the Holy Father, as do other church leaders and bishops from Australia and New Zealand. Prime Minister John Gorton expresses the feelings of the people in his welcoming address.
I am glad indeed, as Prime Minister, to welcome you, Your Holiness, amongst us. You come as head of a state and as the leader of a great Christian church on a mission of goodwill. And I believe that the vast majority of Australians return in full measure and in flowing over that goodwill. Many of us have admired your fortitude in the extensive travels that you have undertaken in the old world and in the new, but we are delighted that you have now journeyed halfway round the world to make this the first papal visit to Australia. In our part of the world, there is a ferment of change, and the practical application of Christian principles can surely be the only final way to attain these ends. And so we welcome a visitor of your eminence and stature and spiritual influence, bringing to us that ideal which the world has never yet attained for long, and that is the message, peace on earth, goodwill towards men.
It's an historic occasion at Sydney's St Mary's Cathedral as 4,000 members of Roman Catholic religious orders gather for a Mass celebrated by the Holy Father. As His Holiness moves down the aisles of the vast cathedral, unprecedented applause greets him. This Mass is the climax of the first day of the papal visit and reveals His Holiness clearly as the shepherd of his flock and spiritual leader of his people. Cardinal Gilroy welcomes the Holy Father to the cathedral before the Mass begins. The Pope is hopeful that his visit will serve towards greater understanding among peoples and draw people together in the interests of peace in our time. In his opening message in Australia, the Pope said, "To all the inhabitants of this continent, we express our friendship. We greet in a special way our brothers of the Christian churches. Like us, they turn their gaze towards Christ. To all, we wish peace. The peace of a conscience delivered from evil and the concord within families and among social groups." The next morning begins with a boat trip on Sydney Harbour aboard the launch Captain Phillip. And once again, bright sunshine greets His Holiness. During the whole of his tour, the Pope has shown his great love for people and moved amongst the gathered crowds at every opportunity. Randwick Racecourse is the scene of one of the largest gatherings in Australia's history. A vast crowd, estimated at almost 250,000, is present when the Holy Father celebrates the bicentenary commemorative Mass. A choir of 300 sing the Song of the Church, specially composed for the occasion by choirmaster Richard Condon.
sons and daughters, my brother and sister in Christ, tonight we have come together to commemorate the events leading to the birth of the Australian nation. Let us pray to our Father in heaven that we may know how to build up our earthly city in justice and love.
Australia welcomes His Holiness Pope Paul VI.
Great Britain meets Australia in the second Rugby League test at the Sydney Cricket Ground, and after a bitter defeat in the first test, England is determined to even the score. The visitors swarm to the attack right from the start, and the Australian side, weakened by injuries, looks set for a grim time. Britain's pint-sized 5/8 Roger Millward is playing a great game, and watch him go in for his first try. England leads 11-2 at half-time. Australia's never really in the game, though this run by Coote raises the hopes of the locals until he's brought down. Big Artie Beetson is well marked throughout the game and has his nose broken in this incident. Big Artie will have to miss a game or two. Atkinson goes over for a try, but Millward is England's hero. Here's one of his 6 goals for 2 of the 20 points he made in the match to equal the record in tests. England never removes the pressure, and the Australian defence is torn to shreds. It's England by 28 points to 7 at full time. But for some, the game's not over. Brawls break out on the hill and 15 people are arrested as police move in. It's a riot that lasts for 45 minutes, a sensational end to the second Rugby League test.
We're down at Narrandera in the Murrumbidgee irrigation area, and these fellas are getting ready for the Australian Rough Riders Championship at the local racecourse. The yards have been specially erected, and there are competitors from New Zealand as well as Queensland, Victoria and New South Wales. Rough riding is pretty tough work, but the competitors enjoy the battle with bulls and broncos as much as they enjoy getting a share of the $3,000 in prize money. And now, as they say, it's up, up and away.
The Melbourne Cup Carnival at Flemington Racecourse, where the nation's leading thoroughbreds vie for the glamour event on Australia's racing calendar. Leading fashion models from 11 countries parade at the course, entrance in the Model of the World contest. At Cup time, Flemington becomes the fashion showplace of the nation, with prizes totaling $20,000 for the Fashions on the Field contests. In recent years, the midi skirt has led the field, but this year equal favourites are the midi and maxi look, with pantsuits making their presence felt. Hats are also a striking entrant in the fashion stakes, and long boots take their rightful place in the field. Age is no barrier to fashion, and this young lady is right with it. One of the feature races of the carnival is the Craven A Stakes, run down the only straight six course in the nation. For the 16 starters, all is in readiness for the top-class sprint field to move to the barriers. Dual Choice, the Melbourne champion, is pre-race favourite. Here's top race commentator Bert Bryant.
Open racing this time, Eloquent bounced out in front. Dual Choice began like a flash and quickly pounced to the lead over on the flat side rail. Nutcracker began fast and just in behind them, going very fast. Dual Choice is up with the leading bunch here, but Eliezer is a clear leader now, and with about 3.5 to go, Eliezer about 1.5 lengths to Dual Choice, wider out of Sylvan Ridge, and going with it is World Treat in the middle, whilst down the outside is Regal Vista San Juan behind them. They're followed by Nutcracker. In behind that bunch of horses, Coppermine, followed by Tordo, starting to work its way into the picture, running down past the two and on the flat side rail. Dual Choice has raced up to take the lead, and to the porter to the crowd. Dual Choice has dashed away. At the furlong pole is Dual Choice, about 1/2 length, now a length to Elisa. They're followed by Tordo is the only danger, then Nutcracker. Dual Choice is the leader with 1/2 furlong to go. Tordo is bridging the gap with every stride. Dual Choice in front. Tordo is coming home very hard. They get it all. Very close between Dual Choice and Tordo. Third Eliezer, fourth Regal.
It's a half-head victory to Dual Choice from Torto and Eliezer. Dual Choice has now won more than $78,000 in stakes, within striking distance of last year's Craven A Stakes winner Bain's earnings of over $145,000. It's a great riding performance for Frank Rays to guide the 3-year-old filly to the post, and a proud moment for owners Mr. and Mrs. Gillam as Melbourne's Lord Mayor Edward Best presents them with the WD and H.O. Wills Trophy. A bright sunny day for the running of the 110th $75,000 Melbourne Cup. Flemington is packed for the most open race in recent years. The Bart Cummings trained Velour is outright favourite, with 5-year-old Arctic Symbol next in line. Top weight Sydney horse Tails has drawn number 22 at the barrier, and the Caulfield Cup winner Beer Street, closer in at number 6, carries the hopes of many. From an original entry of 389.23 start in the 2-miler. Here's Bert Bryant.
A lot of tension. Off now in the big race. Peter's Empire is the first to break the line down near the inside, and getting out very fast is Naples, and so did Beer Street, pouncing on a good posse. Mr. President is racing up on the outside, trying to get into a good position, and a little wider out on the track. Arctic Symbol began brilliantly, and so did Vansittart. The favourite Velour is going up between horses. Now as they come along towards the 2 furlongs pole, a bit of crowding going on here. At the 2 the first time, Beer Street over near the inside. Mr. President 2 out, 3 out. Going up to join them is Index, and on the extreme outside going up very fast Arctic Symbol, and now Moomba Fox has dashed to the front past the furlong the first time. Moomba Fox the leader, about 2 to Beer Street. He's over on the inside of Mr. President. Index is trapped out wide, 1.5 to Arctic Symbol, pushing up in between horses. Then as Velour on the inside rail is running down past the 4.5. Velour about 1/2 length to the good. Mr. President is pushing up on the inside, a length further back is Not Again, still off the track. On the home turn now, with about 2.5 furlongs left to go, and Velour a little out from the rails is still holding down first placing from Mr. President. Beer Street is coming out from the fence, and down the outside Clear Prince is now coming with a big run. At the 1.5 furlong pole, and Velour is giving Johnson plenty. Clear Prince on the outside is finishing on well, and Baghdad Note, here's the New Zealander coming into the picture, and so is Tavel at the furlong pole, and on the extreme outside Baghdad Note, Clear Prince, Tavel and Velour on the fence, and finishing well as Vansittart, but Baghdad Note has got to the front close to home. Vansittart running it down with every stride, won't make it, and New Zealand gets the money. Baghdad Note from Vansittart and Clear Prince him was Beer Street.
It's a series of firsts for the connections of Baghdad Note, as he was the first horse owner Mr. Stuart Faulkner had ever entered in the race. Also for trainer Bob Heasley, his first runner, and there's no doubt how New Zealand jockey Ernie Didham feels about the victory. Symbol of the finest race in the nation, the Gold Melbourne Cup is presented to Mr. Faulkner by Governor-General Sir Paul Hasluck. And once again, it's victory to a great New Zealand stayer, Baghdad Note. Meet Art Schenk, the world's fastest man on ice. The young Dutch giant is visiting Down Under for a series of demonstrations. And while here, he'll show the local speedsters how it's done. In a few loosening up spins, the champ displays a deceptively languid, almost lazy style. But Art's no slouch. His rhythmic action has carried him to 5 world records, ranging from 1,000 to 10,000 meters. Nice going, Art. Young Sydney businessman Shane Stedman owns one of several Australian companies in the surfboard making business. But come winter, the demands of the summer months drop away, and so do the profits. But Shane's company has a second interest that's growing faster than Topsy. They're making lambskin boots, the demand for which is not only causing a mini revolution in the young fashion world, but keeping Shane's company a little more flat to the boards, to coin a phrase. Boots, with the fleece turned in for warmth and stitched to leather soles, are selling at the rate of 1,500 pairs a week, and there's a demand for even more. But now that Uggs have caught on with the younger brigade, they're being turned out in various sizes, ankle length and knee length. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering where the name Ugg comes from, well, so are we. It doesn't necessarily have to be Vietnam. And the way jungle warfare is today, you can still get killed when the enemy's long gone. At the Australian Army's School of Military Engineering, canine conscripts are shown what a landmine looks like. And then they're taught how to find them. Searching for a tripwire left to detonate a mine is a dangerous job, and he's learned to sit down and not move a paw once he's located the hidden wire. The Army uses black Labradors and German Shepherds, and the idea is that they'll go to Vietnam, where mines have been responsible for a high percentage of Australian casualties. The dogs respond to hand signals and devices like ultrasonic whistles that can't be detected by an enemy. To actually find the mines, the dogs use an old-fashioned aid. It's called sniff power. Like a city in a dream. And as they say in the song, it's a fabulous town. True or false, one thing is certain. Sydney's getting bigger and busier all the time. A far cry from the old town that developed under the hand of Governor Lachlan Macquarie in the early 1800s. Some of the old buildings, like Parliament House, have slumbered through the years. The old courthouse, year of birth 1817. Time has passed it by. And remember Circular Quay, the way it used to look? An old tram depot stands on Bennelong Point, home of the $100 million Opera House. Martin Place, it seems, has always been there, but these scenes from the 1930s have none of today's hustle and bustle on the footpaths and streets. Before 1957, city buildings were limited to 150 feet. Prefabrication and building methods weren't as sophisticated as today, but Sydney continued to push out and up. Today, even more dramatic changes are taking place as many of the old landmarks and the not so old make way for new developments to match the city's economic progress. About 30 major buildings are underway or about to be constructed in the city area. The only difference between them and the one at Bennelong Point is that it just keeps rolling along. The new building technique, Australian-invented progressive strength, makes possible speedy erection. Here on the old Tivoli site, they're building a floor every 3 working days. While the old city buildings are virtually disappearing overnight to be replaced by new ones, the population is exploding too, heading for a figure of 5 million by the turn of the century. Perhaps when that time comes, some of us will look back on today's Sydney and our other big cities, pondering those quiet times back in the good old 1970s. The Army goes to sea, preparing for a hazardous assignment in the rough waters of the Antarctic at year's end. It's no light-hearted matter, despite the fact that the 5-ton amphibious vehicles they're using are called Larks. Major General Mackay, Eastern Command, takes a personal interest as the propeller-driven amphibians hit the surf. Today, the water is pretty calm, but over the next few weeks, they'll be out there when the spray is flying. The aim of the special training is to prepare the men and vehicles for a ferry supply mission for the Australian National Antarctic Research Expedition. They'll carry much-needed supplies from the mothership to the Australian bases. Right now, the slow-breaking rollers and warm spring sunshine make it all seem pretty easy. But come Christmas, blizzards and sub-zero freeze-ups could have the sea-going diggers topsy. They're making lambskin boots, the demand for which is not only causing a mini-revolution in the young fashion world, but keeping Shane's company a little more flat to the boards, to coin a phrase. The boots, with the fleece turned in for warmth and stitched to leather soles, are selling at the rate of 1,500 pairs a week, and there's a demand for even more. They call the fleecy-lined boots Uggs. The idea originally was that they might be worn by winter surfing enthusiasts. But now that Uggs have caught on with the younger brigade, they're being turned out in various sizes, ankle length and knee length. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering where the name Ugg comes from, well, so are we. Touchdown at Tullamarine, Australia's new airport. A TAA DC-9 is one of the first scheduled domestic flight arrivals. The big jet snuggles in close to the multi-million-dollar terminal. Whether you travel first class or tourist, Melbourne's Tullamarine is luxury plus, 24 hours a day. The tarmac here is never touched by the feet of the pampered passengers. By magic, it seems, covered walkways join to every incoming and outgoing flight. Baggage arrives automatically and continuously, and other facilities match or do better than those at any world-renowned airport. Everything is new, even the hostess uniforms. And if you need to relax, well, that new lounge is just too much. $500,000 worth of new electronic equipment is installed in TAA's Operations Control Department. Since the early 1930s, Essendon has been Melbourne's main airport. But today, tarmacs, lounges, booking offices all lie dormant as it bows out. For some months now, international flights have been using Tullamarine's new facilities, and reports from passengers are that the changeover has given Australia an air terminal equal to or better than anything, anywhere. Up on the roof, it's easy to pick out what's going on after it happens. You're looking at a switchover operation that climaxes 10 years of planning. there goes another. For a lot of people, it means getting back to somewhere. And new airports like Tullamarine provide the means of doing it comfortably and safely.
Murky conditions as Hawthorn attack against St Kilda in the VFL Grand Final at Melbourne Cricket Ground. Hudson outmanoeuvres the defence to provide Rice with a splendid goal-scoring opportunity. An acutely angled left-footed kick is right on target as the Hawks spark off one of the most dramatic fightbacks the code has known. Trailing by 20 points going into the final quarter, Hawthorn dominate play to rapidly make up the leeway. St Kilda are being bustled by the storming Hawks, who've beaten them on each of the 3 previous occasions the teams have met this season. Keddy snaps another goal, their third in as many minutes, thrilling the Hawthorn supporters in the crowd, exceeding 118,000. Scott's kick gains a favourable bounce to go right between the posts, taking the Hawks to a 13-points lead. Here they come again. St Kilda are weary but desperately endeavour to turn the attack. Their efforts are unavailing as Crimmins snares possession and passes for Keddy. St Kilda's pace goes up in an attempt to mark but fumbles the ball. Keddy gathers and boots a goal on the turn. Kicking a total of 12 goals, 10 behinds, 82 points, Hawthorn defeats St Kilda 11 goals, 9 behinds, 75 points to take the premiership for the second time. Victoria Racing Club Melbourne Cup Carnival again draws Australia's greatest thoroughbreds to Flemington Racecourse. Fashions provide the backdrop, which could be described as the long and short of it, with maxi skirts and hot pants vying for outright favoritism. Present carnival atmosphere is the perfect setting for visitors from all over Australia, New Zealand and many other overseas countries. The $20,000 Craven A Stakes to be run down Flemington Straight 6 course is a feature race of the carnival opening day with 13 runners to face the starter. Proud Top is outright favourite from Welsh Prince. Here's top Melbourne race commentator, Bert Bryant.
Here's a great go, Eleazar next to the fence. High Gypsy is on its outside. Wider out is Abijah, 4 deep on the outside of the field. And going fast is Crown and 5 wide is Proud Top coming at them. And 6 deep right down the middle of the track is Welsh Prince. At the furlong and a half goal, 6 across the track. Crown is just the leader now from Proud Top, and Welsh Prince is on the extreme outside. The leader was Crown with about a half furlong left to go. Welsh Prince is coming at it. On the fence is Abijah. A 3-horse race. Welsh Prince on the outside and Crown. Welsh Prince doing better and won. Welsh Prince by a neck to Crown, 3rd Avenger, 4th Proud Top. They're followed by Endymion.
It's a great win for the Tommy Smith-trained Welsh Prince, ridden by Harry White, who upset a huge plunge on second-place getter South Australia's Crown from the Bart Cummings stable. Melbourne's Lord Mayor, Councillor Rowlands, presents the W.D. and H.O. Wills Trophy to owners T.J. Smith, F.W. Harden and Mrs. D.H. Munro. Brilliant sunshine beams down on Cup Day at Flemington for the running of the $100,000 Melbourne Cup. The Fashions on the Field contest is a display that would please any royal shower or silver night. The sunshine is not a fair sample of an Arctic simple, but enough to make any trader feel like a gay Icarus. Fashions provide an ever-changing spectre as Milady parades amongst a crowd of 100,000. 21 starters are ready for the greatest staying event in the nation, with Gay Icarus a 7-4 favourite. New Zealand-bred Skint Dip is second fancy, while other New Zealanders, Silver Knight and Not Again, share third favouritism with Victorian stayer Big Faloo. Every starter carries the hopes of people all round the nation. And as they move to the post, we cross to Melbourne's ace race commentator, Bert Bryant.
All in, light flashing. They're off! Near the inside sand sequin, one of the first to find grass. Getting out very, very fast also a Skin Dip, and getting away quickly as Lincoln's in down near the inside. From the outside of them, Napur began very fast, and so did Fair Sample as they come across the first 10 crossing and run down towards the leaking up onto the course proper. Lincoln's in as the leader from Cool Alibi, with Fair Sample moving up on the outside, and Napur is 3 across the track vying for the lead. Not Again is just in behind them, followed by Skin Dip, taking up a beautiful posse on the pace on the inside of Big Faloo, and wider out on the outside is Jenny's Pride, a length and a half further back in the field. Then came Arctic Symbol pushing up along the rails. On the outside is Gay Icarus. He's trapped about 3 deep, but he's going up fast towards the leading bunch. Where's he going? Up towards the lead, and the crowd roared as Valiant went up to tackle for the lead on Gay Icarus. Daring Tactics now. It's a great race, or Not Again. He's about to be tackled by Igloo up on the outside, who's gone up very fast. And as they made the run around the turn, Anybody's Race 2 1/4 furlongs out. Igloo, Not Again, and Cool Alibi, the bolter on the outside, is tackling. And here comes Big Faloo, pulled out as Silver Knight, and down the outside is Skin Dip. Where's the favourite? Gay Icarus, he's running fourth. I don't think he can win at the furlong. Igloo is the leader. Silver Knight is the big danger. Down the outside is Tails. Silver Knight raced up to Igloo. Silver Knight goes to the front of the half furlong pole, and Silver Knight will win the cup. Igloo second, Tails third. Fourth there is Skin Dip. They're followed by Fair Sample on the inside of Royal Show and Arctic Symbol.
Once again, New Zealand shows the way, filling 3 of the first 4 places. New Zealand jockey Bruce Marsh rode a brilliant race on Silver Knight to give he and trainer Eric Temperton their first Melbourne Cup victory. The $2,000 Gold Cup is presented to owner Sir Walter Norwood in the presence of Australia's Governor-General Sir Paul Hasluck. A fitting climax to a great race, and what a night it was. (1971), a year of confrontation and crisis in Australia, with the new anti-apartheid movement flexing its muscles during a visit by the South African Surf Lifesaving Team. When the Springbok footballers arrived, the demonstrators were organized. From coast to coast, they jeered and jostled whenever and wherever the visitors appeared. Hundreds were arrested in scenes of mass violence that created an anti-demonstrator backlash at home and headlines around the world. The demonstrators succeeded in having a planned South African cricket tour called off. Apart from that, the police successfully donged the demonstrators, and the classy Springboks went through undefeated. John Gray Gorton won the nomination as Loser of the Year. But in Vietnam, as Defence Minister, after relinquishing the leadership, he still had a smile for the diggers. That day at Government House, Canberra, was to be a momentous one, with faces like Leslie Berry, External Affairs Minister, going out, and new ones like William McMahon coming in. Overseas, the elegant Sonia helped keep her husband on the front pages. While even in the wilds of New Guinea, the Australian Wool Board continued to spread the message that wool is best. Movie Magazine's award for the year's best gimmick goes to Dennis and Raina Robinson, married amid the sharks and little fishes, underwater at Sydney's Marineland. And in sport, a team of 8-year-old soccer players kick an amazing 97 goals to 0. No wonder they've got their own cheer squad. Superb Heather Mackay completes a decade as world squash champion. And shy Yvonne Goolagong emerges as another sporting great to take Wimbledon and become sweetheart of the tennis world. Early in '71, Australians begin to notice a blonde schoolgirl named Shane Gould, whose freestyle sprint time's a little more than a touch away from world class. By year's end, she holds every freestyle world record in the book. Up above, right round Australia, the Air Force celebrates its 50th anniversary. The days of flapping fabric and wire struts have long given way to the whining jet age. The Army, too, has something to celebrate: 100 years of history. To commemorate the occasion, the Queen has approved new colours, handed over by Governor-General Sir Paul Hasluck. Like any other year, 71 has its share of tragedy and destruction. This rail smash in Western Australia was to cause financial loss and inconvenience. But the overall effect of this disaster and fires like Sydney's huge newspaper store blaze, which continued for weeks, proved minor compared with the mounting road toll. But Australia wouldn't be the country it is without fire, flood and drought. And this year, as usual, we experienced the whole gamut. Sometimes, as in this flood and famine, they came more than one at a time. During the year, the much-loved Cardinal Gilroy handed over the care of his flock to Archbishop James Freeman, ending an era of unparalleled leadership in the Roman Catholic Church in Australia. And the world's typical Australian, never-to-be-forgotten Chips Rafferty. He died still championing the cause of a fully-fledged homegrown film industry. The march of time sees Qantas bring in its first jumbo jet. Hopefully, the giant 747s will see Australia's international airline have a less troublesome year in 1972. Also taking to the skies, motor cars. Not all new car buyers get their vehicles delivered this way. A unique promotional gimmick. Motorbikes, too, are in the news. Transport costs are one reason, but 6-hour events with all their frills and spills bring new interest in Australia in 1971 to what's almost an old-time sport. The rally cross sport is one where, for the competitors, the bruises come and go as quickly as the fleeting days. And that also goes for the Outback boys at places like Coonamble, where they're used to copping it sweet. Okay, who's next in the barrel? Cinesound Movietone cameras record a dramatic fall in a race at Sydney's Randwick Racecourse. Here it is again. 2 horses die, but the riders escape serious injury. Perhaps more than ever before, 1971 is a year that sees Australia on the move, with the outlook of its people reflected in the thrust and parry and technical and physical achievement of the racing circuit. But nevertheless, that competitive spirit is still strong. And if 1972 presents another year of confrontation and crisis, I bet we'll get by. The 36th Squadron of the RAAF at Richmond, New South Wales, where aircrew are briefed for the final leg of a world record-breaking task. 100,000 accident-free flying hours in their Lockheed Hercules, an achievement no other air force in the world can boast. Since the RAAF took delivery of its Hercules in 1958, the 12 aircraft of 36th Squadron have flown more than 30 million miles. This time, the squadron is flying to New Guinea to assist in famine relief. Below on the airstrip, villagers await the arrival of another consignment of seed potato from Cairns. After the giant Hercules lands, children watch wide-eyed as the anxiously awaited food is offloaded. The officers and men of 36th Squadron are justifiably proud of the record they've set. 100,000 hours is equal to more than 11 and a half years. As well as seeing service in Vietnam, they've flown countless mercy missions and assisted in flood relief. Another world record the squadron holds is the drop of 24 containers in one pass. The Hercules, workhorse of the air. Heavy rain and rough seas along the coast of New South Wales provide a setting for the story of the ferry tow to Manila that wasn't. An ocean-going tug and 4 ferries started out. 1 sank, and then there were 3. The 3 went aground, and then there were none. Owner Stuart White surveys the problem. The tug stands just outside the waves in one of the many efforts to free the vehicular ferry Koondooloo, an ignominious ending to a vessel that, unescorted, battled its way through tropical storms and enemy waters during World War II, carrying U.S. Army trucks and gear. Looters salvaged many of the fittings from the stricken vessels, including lifeboats and other equipment. The tug Polaris has now abandoned the tow, and 2 of the ferries are breaking up, including the Sydney Queen. Arriving in Australia in 1923, she became the showboat in 1937, and during the war served in the islands as the Kalang. It's now the end of one of Sydney Harbour's best-known identities. The owner will salvage what he can, and the seas off Trial Bay will probably take care of what is left. Before the growth of suburban superstores and overcrowded transport, stores like these were once the hub of the retail business. It was here, and at places like it around Australia, mums and dads bought the family provisions since the turn of the century. And even before that. The old family shops still exist on a few tight-packed corners, but they'd been feeling the pinch, as have the traditional big stores in the city. With huge shopping plazas in the suburbs like this one, the big traders are coping, and some of the small retailers are able to join them and specialize or offer a more personal service. Supermarkets, though, with their bargains and gimmicks, are one area of retailing where volume sales have been able to offset higher costs. For those who yearn for the old days, it may be wise to remember that the dollar wouldn't stretch quite as far without today's modern marketing methods. Outward bound from Australia, and first port of call is exciting Hong Kong. For the passengers, a special added attraction. Along the way, 3 lovely models display a new range of jetaway fashion jewellery from the Australian Emma Page collection. This is Janet Stewart, and the first of more beautiful things to come. Barbara Rogers models some of the range of rings. Other jewellery displayed includes pendants, bracelets, chokers, and fun items such as nautical charm bracelets. Air travel was never like this before the jumbo jet. Some of the jewellery is made in Australia, but most of it comes from exotic faraway places for which many of the travellers are headed. Down through the clouds to Hong Kong, a teeming city of over 4 million people. One of the world's best hotels is headquarters for the Hong Kong stopover. Nothing quite like this back home. The Hong Kong markets. Busy, noisy, and with an atmosphere all their own. Aberdeen is the fisherman's haven, home of the water people, eating, sleeping and working from one generation to another on their fishing junks and sampans. They say that if you don't visit Aberdeen's floating restaurants, you haven't really seen Hong Kong. The 5-minute journey out by single-oared sampan sharpens the palate to razor edge. Crabs, lobsters, fish, squid, octopus, they're all here, still alive in big seawater tanks. Another chance to match exotic jewelry against the equally exotic setting of Hong Kong, a city changing almost as...
It's for the birds and the bees. And you and me, please. Springtime.
I stand and look to the waterside. One reflection rides the tide. Steamboats speed me home, lead me home. And when I land, will you meet me, please? Take me back to the country breeze. Show me pleasure there, leisure there. And if you're in the mood for me, take my hand and lie with me. As the sun sets in your eyes, please comfort me. You smile and take my breath away. Now there's nothing left to say. So gently run your fingers through my hair. I'm in the mood for you. Let me know you'll come with me. Where the cool water falls between the trees. And if you're in the mood for me, take my hand and lie with me. As the sun sets in your eyes, please comfort me.
Fred Veller isn't at all angry with our cameraman or the world generally. He's just building up that mild sort of frenzy that anyone needs when they plan on demolishing a brick house with their bare hands. Is he really serious? You bet he is. Fred's not in the demolition business full-time. He just does it for kicks and for charity. Hopefully this day's work will raise enough money to buy a kidney machine for underprivileged people back in Malta, where he was born. Most of the bricks fall in front of a series of jarring forearm jolts. Fred has been 16 years in the karate business and says the old houses are the toughest opponents he's met so far. Hit him, kick him. For the really tough jobs, Fred calls on his last reserves for an all-out effort. So next time you want a quick demolition job, just call on Fred Veller, Destructor Extraordinary. At first glance, it looks like any doctor's waiting room. The difference is that this one in Sydney's Redfern is the first established by the Aboriginal Medical Service for those unable to pay for normal medical treatment. An added attraction is former Miss Australia Beauty Quest candidate Sister Marjorie Baldwin. A smile from Sister is the first step towards a cure. Today, a visitor to the medical centre is France's renowned social worker Abbé Pierre, who is keenly interested in the project. These days, most of his efforts are spent helping the poor of India through the Swallows organisation. Perhaps as much as anyone else in the world, he knows what it's like to be sick and down and out. The centre now has its own full-time doctor. The building used to be a fish and chip shop, and the Aboriginal Medical Service says the equipment could be better. But it's a start, and already they're planning a country service. Another patient on the road back to good health. With publicity and government support, there'll be more of them in the future. Don't tell anyone, but Fishy has done it again.
The unpredictable chess champ says all future matches will be played underwater. And in this exclusive preview for Australian Movie Magazine, he shows how it can be done. The spectators are getting ready. Fishy claims underwater chess is better because it's quieter. After ensuring that the water sufficiently muffles the whirring of our cameras, he allows the match to proceed. Venue is the Sydney Marineland Pool. The players are from a local scuba club. Fishy, of course, competing on an honorary membership basis for an unnamed multi-million-dollar figure. The finny spectators show what might be called a passing interest, but Fishy refuses to allow his concentration to be put off by the noise of their swimming. Finally, Fishy gets the upper hand, but suddenly the hand and Fishy disappear. Adding to the mystery, the pool's big shark wasn't hungry at feeding time. With underdogs Carlton holding an 18-point lead over Richmond going into the second quarter of the VFL Grand Final at Melbourne Cricket Ground, the favourites tear into attack. Carlton's solid defence disrupts Richmond's pattern and they unleash purposeful counter-attacks. Their anticipation and passing nonpluses the Tigers. Chandler's long-distance goal sparking off a brilliant period of play. Down the ground they come again, charging through the bewildered Tigers. Cleverly snaring possession away from Sheedy, Walls snaps a goal. As Carlton threaten to take control, Richmond make a determined effort. The fierce pace that's been in evidence from the outset becoming even fiercer. Richmond have a chance to goal, Baum taking a spectacular mark. Baum's powerful right footer gains a full pointer for the Tigers, but they'll need plenty more to match Carlton, who have a 45 points lead at half-time. In the fourth and final quarter, Richmond trail by a mammoth 54 points, but Richmond's blending of daring tactics and smooth teamwork outmaneuvers Carlton. Richardson goals, and the Tigers are still in the game. They defeated Carlton by 41 points in the semi-final replay after the first semi had been drawn. But the Blues fought back to eliminate St Kilda in the preliminary final to qualify for today's big one. Through Bond, Richmond race goalwards again. Desperate defence turns them back, but Sheedy regains possession. Quick thinking bringing a goal through Stewart. Tigers coach Tom Hafey's joy is short-lived as Carlton steady to set up more enterprising thrusts. Having led from the opening minute, the Blues have exerted pressure throughout and have rarely been in danger of losing the initiative. In a remarkable match, a total of 50 goals are scored. Carlton making better use of their chances to break the grand final scoring record. They win 28-9, 177 points to Richmond's 22-18, 150, taking their second flag in 3 seasons and their 11th overall. One Australian who well and truly left his mark in 1972 is Tony Mundine, heading for another victory, this time against import Denny Moyer. 1973, the experts say, could see Mundine take the middleweight world title. No matter what the new year brings, 72 will remain the big one for Shane Gould. Here she's on her way to another world record in the 100 metres. All over the country, sportsmen and women prepared for the Munich Olympics. They were to come back with their share of medals, thanks mainly to our girl swimmers. This was the year the Germans hoped when the world might forget the recriminations and bitterness of the last Olympics in their country in 1936. But a band of desperate men shattered that hope in an act history now records as the Olympic Games atrocity. For the historians, 72 was a year for memories. Could it really be 40 years since the bridge was opened?
1932 was also the year we saw the last of the Great Phar Lap. The old-timers say there's never been another one as good. Roy Higgins kept the punters happy when he broke Bill Williamson's record of 67 winning rides in a season, including an incredible 12 winners at the VRC Autumn Carnival. Here we see him riding light fingers to win the 1965 Melbourne Cup. Only the bookies cheered when outsider Piping Lane from the Apple Isle flashed to the lead to win last year's Melbourne Cup. Preparing for an era of international trade greater than we've ever seen before, they pushed ahead with construction of a new harbour for Sydney. Botany Bay will be a haven for the super ships of the future. One super ship of bygone days, Queen Elizabeth went to the bottom of Hong Kong harbour after a raging fire. She carried many Allied troops, including Australians, during World War II. Like a vision from the past, the sailing ship Esmeralda floated into Australian ports for a welcome befitting an old friend. She came all the way from Chile. Noisier, more robust and certainly more controversial, the Concorde Superjet gave Australians a look at the way things are being planned for world travellers of the future. She may or may not be back in 73, perhaps never at all. Front mini bikes boomed around the country in 1972, much to the delight of their owners and the horror of their neighbours. The law also got a power boost. In New South Wales, the traffic men took delivery of new Honda 750s. The urge to ride motorbikes has always been here on the tracks, with Australians again among the world's best in the past year. And last year, too, saw its share of zany characters prepared to do something for money, for publicity, or just for fun. Here from 1972, and a year or two before, are just a few of them. The age of the jumbo jet and cheap air charter fares saw a big jump in the tourist trade in the old year, with Qantas pilots trading here in the 747 simulator for the growing boom. With those succulent salaries, the pilots are one section of the community who can face the new year with confidence. The Navy, too, has spruced up its high-flying procedures. The big mirrors on the aircraft carrier Melbourne help the pilots to a do-it-yourself landing, replacing the old Batman techniques. And just for the record, an Australian-owned Great Dane produced 18 puppies in one litter. Temporarily away from the political spotlight, Billy McMahon became a proud father for the third time. Not long after, B for birthday was to become D for disaster day for the Liberal leader. Gough Whitlam steps in as 72 sees him finally take over as number one. As it always does, time will tell the story of his and our progress. The most prolonged negotiations in international politics have finally seen the signatures that bring to a close a most terrible Holocaust. The war in Vietnam may be officially over, but the evidence of this blot on humanity still drags on. A war of innocence. Babies, children, wives and mothers suffered as their men fought the fight that many claim would have no end. The conflict has cost the lives of millions. The tragedy causes us all to ask, for what? Is this peace at last, or will Indochina continually remain the scene of man's inhumanity to man?
Let me tell you the story of a soldier named Dan. Went out to fight the good fight in South Vietnam. Went out to fight for peace, liberty and all. Went out to fight for equality. Oh, found himself involved in a sea of blood and bones. Millions without faces, without hope and without homes. And the guns, they grew louder as they made dust out of bones. That the flesh had long since left, just as the people left their homes. And the war drags on. They're just there to try and make the people free. But the way that they're doing it, it don't seem like that to me. Just more bloodletting and misery and tears that this poor country's known for the last 20 years. And the war drags on.
And while the Spitfire celebrates 30 years in the air, the Royal Australian Navy turns 60 years of age. It was 1913 when our first fleet entered Sydney Harbour. The story of the Royal Australian Navy begins when HMAS Australia was launched. She, together with the cruisers Melbourne, Sydney and Encounter, and the destroyers Parramatta, Warrego and Yarra formed Australia's first fleet. They were a grand sight to the thousands of people lining the shores of Sydney Harbour as they steamed in from Britain where they were built. Not long after, our fleet had its baptism of fire in World War I. It served with distinction and courage. On the road to Anzac, where the AIF and the RAN played a major role in crushing the enemy. In all theatres of war, in World War II, in Korea and in Vietnam, the Royal Australian Navy has a history of sacrifice and service. It has seen the triumph and the tragedy, like this, where the German ship Blucher was lost with many hundreds of lives. Today, our Navy is in a stronger position than it has ever been before in peacetime, and ready to serve for another 60 years.
Cherbourg, 175 miles northwest of Brisbane, with a population of almost 1,100, boasts an enterprising Aboriginal settlement controlled by the Queensland Government Department of Aboriginal and Island Affairs. A town within a town, the settlement has its own post office, school, general store, picture show, and 3 football teams who play weekly matches against those from neighbouring towns. There's a happy, healthy environment in which various skills are taught, pottery being one of the most popular, the financial returns from which are helping Cherbourg become self-sufficient, the aim of the All Aboriginal Council. For those proficient in the arts, there's opportunity aplenty to further emphasize the renowned creative talents of their people. Kangaroo skins are used in the manufacture of toy koala bears. They, like the Cherbourg pottery, also find a ready market. The gentle sex, for their part, are contributing to a considerable degree in making the settlement independent. Industrious and determined, they're an inspiring example to other settlements, as their craftsmanship finds outlets in several countries of the world.
Like a huge white seabird, the Sydney Opera House sits on the edge of the harbour waters.
It all began in the 1950s, with designers from around the world competing for one of the prizes of the century. The winning entry was the creation of Danish architect Jørn Utzon. Over the years, there have been alterations to the original concept, but the basic idea of white sails floating on the harbour remains. Bennelong Point near Circular Quay was chosen as the site. It was then used for a tram depot. 1959 sees the laying of the foundation stone. A happy occasion, but even then costs were going up. It was felt perhaps $1 million or $2 million extra may be needed. The money for the job was rolling in from special lotteries, and work on the excavations pushed ahead in 1960. Those cynics who said this bird would never fly had to eat their words, as month by month the sails rose higher to reach the sun. As the sails lifted, so did the costs. Nevertheless, through the 60s, the white elephant joke became a reality for each succeeding state government. As word of the remarkable, controversial building spread, visitors from around the world came to see for themselves. As the numbers rose, so did the dollars. 50 million, 60, 70, 80. The Duke of Edinburgh was fascinated. So was a pressman in his party, to the point where he missed his step and fell into the harbour. The concert hall, detailed to be the setting for artistic triumphs of the future. Among famous visitors was Australia's great operatic soprano, Joan Sutherland. Mrs. Gandhi, like almost every other visitor, wants to come back when the building really comes to life. Perhaps no artistic performance will arouse the interest and controversy that surrounded Utzon's sudden departure. He wanted to do things one way, the government another. Utzon left the Opera House and Australia, saying he'd not be back. The building proved a challenge, not only to the government and architects, but also the myriad of craftsmen involved. Completely new techniques were necessary to overcome some of the special problems needed to perfect a once-in-a-lifetime building. But the problems were solved. 3 young Australian architects, Peter Hall, Lionel Todd and David Littlemore, became responsible for the completion. 14 years and $100 million after it all began, we're almost there. And even before its opening, the building is famous throughout the world. Plans are all but complete for opening day, with a command performance before the Queen on October 20th. The Sydney Opera House, a superb and beautiful symbol of modern Australia.
Startling fashions grace Flemington Racecourse on the opening day of the Victoria Racing Club's Melbourne Cup Carnival. The course is packed, and fashions have gone to Milady's head, with colour and style heading the field. Top jockey Roy Higgins mounts one of Melbourne's unluckiest sprinters, Century, the pre-post second favourite for the $30,000 Craven A Stakes down the straight 1,200-metre course. Bert Bryant.
Well,
They're off. Looked like the Boer War, and they jumped away. New Gleam bounded out down near the inside. Will be one of the leaders on settling down. Cut and Deal began fast also. Salient about 5 or 6 from the rail. St. Mervyn's going fast. So is Warple and Prometheus and Pure Luck down the middle. Let's go out to the grandstand side. There's about a dozen of them out there where Coomerang is one of the leaders. Going fast also close behind them, Viking Star and Tordale is with them, and out in that division is I'm Scarlet going up fast, and so is Crown and Century right down the extreme outside rail, and right out in the middle, Hunter and Prometheus, whilst on the grandstand side, I'm Scarlet has got to the front out there. New Gleam where it's got to. It's beaten. It's about 8th on the inside rail and can't win. Now here's anybody's race, Galdare and Cut and Deal on the outside, on the inside. Century on the outside is flying. He's gone past I'm Scarlet. Century is flying home from Galdare. They go to the post, and Century has won. Century is first on the outside. Galdare right over on the fence is second. I'm Scarlet back on the outside rail is third.
A great victory for the 4-year-old brown horse trained by Bart Cummings. Century has run second in several major races, but his win today is truly the punter's choice. The $500 WD&HO Wills Trophy is presented by the Lord Mayor of Melbourne, Councillor Alan Wally, to owners Travascus, Curtin and Armstrong.
Cup Day and a full field of 24 are to face the starter. 13 New Zealand bred horses go to the barrier, with Glengowan outright favourite from Diana and last year's second place getter, Magnifique. All is ready for the running of the 113th Melbourne Cup. And here's Bert Prime.
Gentlemen, they're all set to go on the Melbourne Cup, and they're off and running. A great shuffle down near the inside. Medaway was one of the first to get going. Getting out very fast is Diana, and going quickly is Brugan in the early part, searching for the lead, and Strike again with his flashing white feet and the off-white colours of the club. Putting the glasses towards the outside, there goes Audacity veering across. Gala Supreme got out well, followed by Land Lover. It's Audacity taking possession of the rails, a length and a half to Australasia, who's throwing his head up in the air. That's not going to do him any good. Up on the outside, Strike again. In behind them, Daneson, Gala Supreme, followed by Red Hope, Brugan, Monvan, then Campanello. On the outside then is the Gala Red going up forward there, followed by Golden Sam. In behind them, Mr. Expensive. Going up along the rails is Diana. In the centre is Glengowan, centre field, followed by Disa. Well back in the field then is Swell Time on the inside of Peg's Pride, a length and a half further back is Magnifique. Up on the inside then goes Medaway. Audacity giving a ton of cheek. He's about 2 lengths and a Strike again a length away. Then is Mr. Expensive. My word, he's gone up in a hurry. He's got his foot flat to the fork. They start to street the home turn now, and with all the big guns firing, there's a wall of horses across the track. Audacity leads into the straight from Gala Red. Mr. Expensive is wider out, and down the outside now is Daneson with a big run. And here comes the king of the Kiwis, Glengowan. Glengowan is racing out after these leaders, where Daneson got to the front now. Down the outside, Glengowan is gathering him in, and they're followed by Gala Red, and Golden Sam is coming fast, and so is Gala Supreme. It's Daneson tackled by Gala Supreme and Glengowan. Glengowan, Gala Supreme, they hit the line. Photo, Gala Supreme by a nose to Glengowan. A hit away third was Daneson, followed by...
A superb victory for the first Victorian bred, owned and trained horse in 20 years. The 4-year-old brown gelding started from the outside barrier. For jockey Frank Rays, it's his greatest triumph. At 41, Rays is the oldest jockey in the field. The $3,000 Gold Cup is presented to owner Pat Curtin by Victorian Governor Sir Owen Delacoon to complete another chapter in the sport of kings.
Perfect conditions and a big crowd at Sydney Cricket Ground for the third test between Pakistan and Australia. Having won the toss for Australia, their captain, Ian Chappell, decides to bat. After missing the first 2 tests because of a back injury, opener Keith Stackpole begins in typically aggressive fashion. The burly Australian vice-captain should add to his already high rating on the coming West Indies tour. He's a handy leg spinner and good slips field. Paceman Safraz tests Ian Redpath's mettle. Having regained his place in Australia's side after being dropped for the English tour, Redpath top scores with 79. The member of last season's Rest of the World 11, Masood, to the dashing Ian Chappell. And there's his favourite hook shot. Younger brother Greg hailed as one of the best two batsmen in the world. A century maker in the second test, Greg is famed for his timing and placement of shots. A complete cricketer. Pakistan captain Intikhab Alam, a spin bowler of the highest merit and a punishing bat. An inspiring leader. Exciting Rodney Marsh, the only Australian wicketkeeper to score a test century. The tenacious Salim moves the ball with authority and captures Ross Edwards' wicket. The West Australian made an impact with the bat during the English tour and is one of the world's best fieldsmen. Meanwhile, a couple of fellas on the hill provide entertainment between wickets. There's a weight discrepancy, but generally they're observing the Marquess of Queensberry rules, we think. Having gone close to victory in the second test, Pakistan are proving formidable rivals to Australia. Orson Dennis Lillee is handled competently by opener Sadiq. But this human express is always menacing. The widely experienced Naseem, a former Pakistan captain, demonstrates his quality as an opener. Swing specialist, stout-hearted Bob Massey has stylish Zahir Abbas in trouble, and he's caught by Marsh, equal world record holder for wicket-keeping dismissals in one innings. Australia's destructive force, 23 years old Dennis Lillee, cricket's fastest and probably its best bowler.
(1973), a year of achievement and change. Yet, in retrospect, people proved they remained basically the same. This was reflected in the resurrection of the big air race, and of 174 starters, only one failed to finish. And what a finish! Outright victory going to grandmothers Marie Richardson and Margaret Kentley. The daring and drama of yesteryear was all there, as some came in on a wing and a prayer. It was thought initially that that's what the controversial F-111s would need to get to Australia. But almost 10 years after they were ordered, the first of 19 landed safely and spectacularly at Queensland's Amberley base. Men and women also personally challenged the sky, without wings too. 14,000 feet up at Pakenham, Victoria, a blending of precision and courage by Australia's leading skydivers produces a falling star formation. Women's lib made notable progress, especially in racing, when for the first time lady jockeys rode in a race on which betting was permitted at Eagle Farm, Brisbane. The girls also made their mark in the trotting world, Sydney's Fran Donahue participating in the initial trotting race for women at a registered meeting at South Australia's Globe Derby Park. Thrilling AJC Derby at Randwick, won by Imogil. Kevin Langby in the saddle from Like a Lover and Gay Icarus gave the Colts trainer Tommy Smith yet another record. It was his 7th AJC triumph and his 18th Derby success overall. Acknowledged one of the most popular victories in the Blue Riband, Imogil recovered from an almost fatal fall in the Golden Slipper Stakes to take Smith to his record. Another idol, Gunsynd, became Australia's greatest stakes winner. The Gundawindi Grey amassed more than $280,000 during his career before being retired to the stud in October. He never went at a snail's pace like these little wretches, the white Italian or sand dune snails that wreaked havoc around almost inaccessible areas on West Australia's coastline, devouring anything green and living. Aircraft had to be used to spread poison pellets to counter the menace. Another perennial pest, the despised Argentine ant continued defying all human opposition, even though there was a bounty of $50 on the brown-coloured 1/8 of an inch critters. And there were scourges beneath the sea's surface, the crown of thorns starfish infesting the beautiful Barrier Reef. They're destroying immense areas of Swain's Reef, part of the incomparable coral wonderland. Static efforts to stem their rampage has been ineffective, so the navies moved in to wage sustained warfare against them. And guess what came back? The yo-yo craze, which normally runs in 3-year cycles. From all parts of the world, the champion exponents came, but as quickly as the fascinating pastime exploded into popularity, it traditionally passed into obscurity. Not so the mini-bike craze. These herby little machines attracted both girls and boys at training centres such as this one at Sydney Showground. Though there were adult instructors, the youngsters were given as much control as common sense dictated to help them develop a sense of traffic responsibility. And in this ever faster moving world, the dog show not only survived but flourished, further emphasizing the affinity between man and his best friend. Collectors, too, took time out from the incessant pace. In quest of items from a more sobering time, West Australia's Bill and Brian E. Jowett's located bottles more than 100 years old, which is pretty much as it should be, considering Bill is president of the 300-strong Colonial Bottle Club. There's money in collecting, too, for those commercially inclined. Lance Moore has proved the point, having sold shells at a cent a time till he raised $1,000. Lance opened his store just over 11 years ago. Ted Towers, though, is strictly an amateur, matchboxes being his particular passion, with a collection numbering $250,000. Well, strike a light. And the gramophones of retired New South Wales grazier Jim Cox. Some of these ancient aristocrats brought pleasure to their original owners as far back as 1886. The shock retirement of wonder swimmer Shane Gould from the competitive scene at 16 years of age was a sporting sensation. Yet in her wake, Australia produced yet another superfish, Queensland's Stephen Holland, 1,500 metres gold medalist at the inaugural World Swimming Championships in New World Figures. There was excitement too at Mount Isa, where the World Rodeo Championships were staged as part of the mining town's Golden Jubilee. This ornery customer wasn't impressed. As far as he was concerned, it was really a lot of bull. Saturday, October 20th. Sydney's greatest day, when Her Majesty opened the Opera House, 17 years in the making and costing over $100 million. Controversial but magnificent, the Sydney Opera House received world acclaim in the year 1973. Coolangatta on the Gold Coast, and all is ready for a very important visitor. Prince Charles, in Australia for official duties, is the guest of honour at a surf carnival staged to mark the opening of the season. Surf clubs from up and down the Queensland coast are in attendance. He shows an active interest in the surf boat and ski races and the other events of the carnival. But the Prince is not just one to sit and watch. He likes to get with the action and leaves the podium to join the crew of the Coolangatta surf rescue boat as they go through their paces. Australia's royal visitor, a day with the sun and the surf, is a prelude to the main reason for his visit. Surfers Paradise, the Gold Coast tourist resort conjuring up visions of glitter, sunshine and affluence. Nowhere in Australia has so much been done to attract and amuse the tourist. Even the porpoises seem determined to put on a great show. Surfers is still growing, and the City Council has adopted a major strategic plan for development. Today, the permanent population is 75,000, with accommodation for more than 120,000 tourists. But the planners foresee a permanent population of 200,000 by 1990. There's a new upsurge of building. Top-class hotel blocks are being completely redeveloped. Busy traffic thoroughfares are being converted to pedestrian malls, and more high-rise apartment blocks are reaching for the sky. Surfers Paradise is on the up and up again. The Gold Coast is one of Australia's most popular playgrounds. At Surfers, a new building boom. At the Art Gallery of New South Wales, a $1.3 million controversy goes on display to the Australian public for the first time. It's the Jackson Pollock painting, Blue Poles, hailed by art critics around the world as a masterpiece. Arriving in Australia nearly 12 months after it was purchased in America, the question everyone's asking is it worth it? Director of the Art Gallery of New South Wales, Mr. Peter Laverty, is on hand to answer spectators' questions. James Mollison, Director of the National Gallery, who purchased the painting. Is it art or is it junk? Well, what do you think? Sunbury 74, a non-stop festival that draws a crowd of 30,000 for the Australia Day weekend. 40 bands blare out for nearly 20 hours each day, and Australia's biggest pop festival rocks and rocks and rocks.
So to a perfect stranger, asking for a simple favor. My mind, deep in its confusion, which way out of this illusion?
Almost exactly 36 years ago, an excited crowd watched as this impressive Sandringham flying boat landed at Australia's international airport at Rose Bay on Sydney Harbour.
It was the beginning of regular scheduled passenger flights to Singapore and New Zealand. Thousands of passengers travelled on the old flying boats, particularly honeymooners who flew to Lord Howe Island. Today, newer aeroplanes and economics have forced the flying boat service out of business. Once a hive of activity, the Rose Bay hangar is now deserted and silent. But flying boats are still in demand around the world, and to take delivery of the last one is Captain Blair, who, with his famous actress wife Maureen O'Hara, runs a service in the Virgin Islands, and he's renamed the craft Southern Cross. Sandringham starts up its engines on Sydney Harbour for the last time as it moves out on one of the longest journeys of its life. Watched by a nostalgic crowd, Southern Cross lifts off as another page in the history of Australian aviation is turned. Like a giant, curious bird, she takes a last look at Sydney Harbour before turning east towards a new home. The motor car, lifeblood of industry, key to personal freedom, and one of the most important means of communication. More than 160 cars are stolen in Australia each day. That's more than 60,000 a year, and of all states, New South Wales has the most car thieves. Police keep a constant vigil against car thieves, but despite new laws requiring ignition and steering locks, their efforts are frustrated by motorists who apparently don't care about their own property. More often than not, the thief's a joyrider. But police are alarmed at the growing number of vehicles that are never recovered. Cars are stripped and rebuilt practically overnight, with false engine numbers for quick resale. Damaged cars are held by the police while investigations are completed. These bear mute witness to the vandalism and greed of the car thief and cost insurance companies nearly $20 million a year. Many electrical and mechanical gadgets have been developed to thwart would-be car thieves. Here are just a few, but they have one big disadvantage. If he can see them, he can beat them. Strat Georgiadis and John Brooks, both electronic engineers, have developed a car alarm that will deter the most determined thief. With the alarm activated, this red light flashes on the gear change console. Any thief seeing this in a car quickly crosses it off his wanted list. All parts of the alarm system are tested and retested, a process which has ensured that out of the 10,000 cars fitted with the alarm, not one has been stolen or broken into. Sophisticated circuitry ensures its reliability. No matter how he tries, this car is wired for sound. To the Sydney Cricket Ground on a perfect afternoon comes a capacity crowd who appreciate the pre-match activities staged by Eastern Suburbs and Canterbury Bankstown, the clubs clashing in the 1974 Rugby League Grand Final. The strutting rooster shows the confidence of East supporters. Kicking off, East dash downfield, endeavouring to take the initiative immediately. Strongly favoured to win through the brilliance of their backline, East handling and pace stretches Canterbury's defence as Porter charges down the flank. Muscled into error, Canterbury is penalised. Brass's reliable boot sending East into a 2-0 lead. Powerhouse centre Mark Harris creates havoc and has Mullins in support. He's brought down by Anderson and Dowling just short of the line. Through East's scrum infringement, Canterbury has a chance to open their account. Cutler's kick is on line, and it's 2-all. Having beaten East in the major semi-final, Canterbury has an opportunity of winning their first premiership since 1942. They're a young side, though, and East are exerting constant pressure.
The evasive Fairfax sends Beaton crashing over for the first try. East's lead 7-4 at half-time, and keeping play in Canterbury's half on the resumption add to their score through Peard's penalty goal. East are a complete team, almost as strong in defence as in attack, and contain the hard-working Berries. Canterbury's strong-running fullback Gary Darling leads a counter-attack. Though gaining a greater share of possession from scrums, Canterbury lacks East penetration, the Roosters' experience being a dominant factor. Stepping through tackles with sheer strength and speed, Harris crosses for East's second try to the obvious delight of winger Bill Mullins. Peard converts, and East are in control. Perfect timing of passes and faultless teamwork confuse Canterbury. Porter's long pass to Mullins beating the cover defence as the winger goes over for a try in the corner. East win 19-4, skillfully led by Arthur Beetson. It's their first premiership since 1945 and their 10th overall. So good is the present-day combination rated, it's been compared to East's all-conquering teams of the mid-1930s, who suffered only one defeat in capturing 3 successive premierships. Reaching the grand final for the first time since 1950, North Melbourne are sentimental favourites against last year's premiers, Richmond, in the battle for the Victorian Football League's flag on Melbourne Cricket Ground. Almost 114,000 spectators relish the exciting struggle as the Kangaroos are turned back by Richmond's vaunted half-back line, Bob McGee taking a finely judged mark. Vastly more experienced, the Richmond Tigers have beaten Norths in their 3 previous meetings during the season, including the major semi-final. Norths, though, under Ron Barassi's coaching, are primed for a maximum effort in their bid to win their first flag in the 50 years they've been in the VFL. The Tigers' strong defence is a feature of play, but North's goal-kicking accuracy takes them into the lead during the second quarter. A consistent combination, they've been in the top 5 throughout the season and defeated Hawthorn in the preliminary final. Richmond captain Royce Hart, a major obstacle to Norths in the semi-final and again today, regains control for the Tigers as they strike back in devastating fashion. And there's another 6-pointer. Trailing 19 points going into the final quarter, North's defence is outmanoeuvred by Richmond's teamwork and speed. Perfect understanding and anticipation gives Barry Richardson a goal in the opening 10 seconds. And there's another from Sheedy as Richmond assert their superiority. Dashing rover Paul Sproul switched into the centre threatens more danger, but his pass intended for Kevin Sheedy is swooped on by Brownlow medalist Keith Gregg, and he sparks off a kangaroo thrust. Pacey Wayne Schimmelbusch opens up an opportunity, but Richmond's reliable back pocket Mervyn Keane foils the attack. Strive as they might, the Kangaroos find Richmond unyielding as they efficiently protect their commanding lead. Full forward Richardson kicks his 5th goal, the highest individual tally of the match, as Richmond seal the grand final. Norths battle on commendably, but their untiring efforts fail to bridge the scoring gap. Richmond winning 18 goals 20, 128 points, to 13 goals 9, 87 points, giving them their 9th premiership, and they're the first team in 15 years to win the flag in successive seasons. Sunshine greets visitors to Flemington for the running of the 114th Melbourne Cup. 22 are to face the starter and 16 will fold in New Zealand. 3 in Victoria, 1 in South Australia and Tasmania, and 1 in Western Australia. Leilani, the 4-year-old brown mare, starts favourite from the 7-year-old brown gelding, Battle Heights. Weather's fine, track is good, and here's Bert Bryant.
Light flashing, ladies and gentlemen, for the running of the 1974 Melbourne Cup. All set and they're off and running. Tara's Bulba down near the inside was one of the first to get out with our Pocket, who began very, very fast, and so did Passatul, showing pace. Leilani began like a flash, and already she's crossing over towards the inside into a bit of posse, and wider out is Herminia, who got out fast, and so did High Sail, zooming up on the outside in search of the lead. The feature of the first 200 metres was a fantastic ride by Cook to get Leilani into a good posse, and as they run down, linking up with the course prop at the 400-metre mark, it's High Sail by 3 lengths to Leilani, who's gone over to the fence on the inside of top order. They're followed by Igloo facing the shadows 3 deep off the rail. Over on the inside is Tara's Bulba, Passatul in the middle, and they're followed closely up on the outside by Sequester. Captain Perry is out 3 deep. In the middle is Gala Supreme. On the inside is Game Master. They're followed closely by Piping Lane over near the inside. Herminia 3 deep of that bunch as they go towards the turn out of the straight. Big Big is about third last. Next to last is our Pocket, and Corroboree is tailed off. 800 metres left to run now, and Sequester's gone to the front, the bolter. Moving up on the outside to have a crack at it is Passatul. Gala Supreme and Igloo are still nice and handy as they start to run around the turn, where Sequester is the leader. Battle Heights has worked its way up into the picture very quickly, and they're followed closely on the outside by Igloo as they make the turn into the straight, and look at them come from everywhere. Battle Heights is up going for the lead now. On the outside, coming out to have a crack at it is Igloo. Leilani is looking for a run between them, will need it. And here comes Captain Perry down the outside, and Turf Cutter. Turf Cutter is mowing grass. Battle Heights went to the front of the 200-metre mark from Leilani. Captain Perry on the outside then is Turf Cutter and Thing Big. Leilani is getting to Battle Heights, and on the outside, Captain Perry. Leilani just in front. Thing Big is picking it up down the outside, and Thing Big has got up to win the cup. Thing Big has won. Leilani is second. Third of the race then was Captain Perry.
Victoria's leading jockey, Harry White, rides his first Melbourne Cup winner with trainer Bart Cummings, the second to prepare 4 winners and the first to win the Quinella 3 times. Governor-General Sir John Kerr presents the Melbourne Cup to owners CN Tan of Kuala Lumpur and R.J. O'Sullivan of Queensland, as yet another chapter is recorded in the history of the Sport of Kings. Australians have seen colour television, the closed-circuit kind, at the races. But on Caulfield Cup Day, it's the real thing as stations begin regular colour TV transmission. At the huge Philips plant at Clayton, Victoria, the first Australian-made colour TV sets are being produced. These women are making the wiring looms, the least complicated part of the sets, which are 3 times as complex as black and white. Plug-in sockets are fixed, the assembly is tested. This is the first of 12 test stations, which will ensure the set is perfect when it leaves the plant. Australia will use the full PAL system, and the sets being produced at Clayton were designed in Europe, the home of PAL, and refined for Australian standards. They are manufactured in modules, and each module is connected by the plug-in loom. The modular design will make servicing easy and cut down those costly repair bills. Each module, like this control panel, is made from a number of sub-assemblies, each complete in itself. The control panel is tested too, even making sure it will take accidental bumps during transport. Modern electronic testing equipment ensures that every component is functioning perfectly before the module passes to the next stage of production. A modern colour TV set is made up of more than 2,000 components, over 3 times as many as in a black and white set. It's certainly complex, but its design, solid-state construction, and the use of integrated circuits make it extremely reliable.
Sub-assemblies are completed and incorporated in the larger modules, like this large signal panel. Each panel contains hundreds of components, all of which must be connected securely into the circuit. The final soldering is done in a single process for maximum efficiency and reliability. Completed modules are placed in racks ready for assembly into the TV set. But before they are accepted for final assembly, every one will be individually tested to ensure its performance. At Clayton, nothing is left to chance. The plant also houses a modern furniture shop where the cabinets for the TV sets are made. This machine covers the board with hard-wearing vinyl in a wood grain finish and then shapes and grooves the board automatically. Bevels are cut automatically too to ensure a perfect fit and resulting strength in construction. The saws are accurate to 1/6000th of an inch. It's cabinet making made easy, the automatic way. The big screen color tube is fixed in position, and then the other modules are added. Easy to assemble, easy to replace if repairs should ever be needed. A color television screen is actually made up of more than 1 million red, blue and green phosphor dots. Every screen on every set is examined to make sure the dots are arranged exactly in the correct groups of 3. It takes a powerful periscope, as 75 dots would fit on the head of a match. The finished set goes through its final testing before acceptance. In another Philips plant, engineers are completing equipment for the television stations themselves. Orders for more than $15 million worth of equipment have been received, and much of it has already been installed. Studio technicians have been trained for the day when color comes. Since 1956, Australians have watched television only in black and white. But C-Day, C for Colour Day, is fast approaching. The day of the first regular TV transmission. No longer will television be black and white. The world will come to life in natural colour.
Darwin, the northern gateway to Australia. In happier times, this was the friendly, warm Darwin that was home to more than 40,000 people. To the top-enders, it was more than home. It was a way of life. To visitors from Australia's southern cities, it was a lifestyle to be envied, with no hustle and bustle, a minimum of traffic noise, and a pace that no one found intolerable. Darwin was Australia's own paradise, the Aussie slice of utopia. Darwin has known unhappy times. In 1942, the Japanese had the city in their sights as wave after wave of Zeros obliterated large sections with their bombs. It was the first and last time the enemy engaged Australians in combat on their own shores. Hundreds of homes were damaged beyond repair, and many lives were lost. But today, Darwin faces ruins again, as for the second time in less than 50 years, the city has once more been leveled. But the enemy this time was nature. Shrieking, howling winds called Cyclone Tracy tore the city apart on Christmas Day. Cyclone Tracy carved a path of destruction never before known on Australian soil. The death toll stands at 50. How high it will go may never be known, for parts of Darwin are still being found up to 80 kilometres away. If Cyclone Tracy proved anything, it proved the mateship and the generosity of the Australian people. All told, more than $14 million was raised, more than $1 a head for every Australian man, woman and child. Thousands were raised at this auction. Blackbirding in Queensland fetched a handsome sum. This appealing pup found an owner. Even prize cattle were on offer. This prime cow raised $2,600. From the air, Darwin looks like a giant rubbish dump. The massive cleanup continues as the city gathers its strength to build again. At the moment, it's only guesswork, but experts estimate that it will take up to 10 years and cost more than $1,000 million before Darwin again becomes home for 40,000 people and an Aussie slice of utopia. Watchdogs of the sea lanes in time of peace. Aggressive warriors in time of war. Swift, sleek, powerful. But like all old ships, one day they must fade away. This was a proud ship once. 20 years ago, HMAS Sydney was flagship of the Australian fleet. The flight deck saw thousands of landings and takeoffs during the war in Korea. Airstrikes against communist tanks, trains, bridges and supply depots. The ship's aircraft set a record for the number of sorties flown, a record for a light aircraft carrier which has not yet been equalled. But that was in her heyday, when her flock of Sea Furies and Fireflies were among the world's most modern naval aircraft. The once proud carrier became a training ship, and then a troop carrier, which made 24 trips to and from South Vietnam. They called her the Vung Tau Ferry. Today, quietly rusting away in Sydney Harbour, only seagulls use the flight deck. The 17,000-ton carrier is slowly dying at her mooring in the port which gave her her name.
Hello, this is Pat Furman, and we're taking a look at the Australian woman, 1975 style. It's International Women's Year, and more of us are doing our own thing. Call it women's lib, call it what you like, but it's happened. No longer do we live in a totally male-dominated society. Mind you, it's taken a long while for women to achieve real equality. It's been a long, hard struggle. Suffragette Emily Davison was killed in 1913 when she threw herself under the King's horse in the English Derby. Emmeline Pankhurst was leader of the suffragettes, but she died some years before women members were elected to the British Parliament. Lady Astor was the first woman member of the House of Commons, but it was to be many years before the first woman cabinet minister was appointed, Margaret Bonfield. Traditionally, too, there are jobs that seem to be reserved for women, the typist and the switchboard operator. In more and more companies, women have achieved positions of responsibility. They're in top management, and in sales management, many of the highest paid executives are women. The Direct Selling Association of Australia's statistics reveal that over 50,000 people, mostly women, are engaged in direct selling throughout the country. Many have chosen this field because it allows them to work flexible hours, provide supplementary income for the family, and not disrupt their family life. Mrs. Yvonne Jones of Sydney is one of many women who have found a rewarding interest in the sales field. She's the mother of 3 children, but she's taken a spare time occupation in direct selling. The additional money has enabled the family to enlarge and redecorate their home. plan is popular as a social gathering, as well as an opportunity to purchase. Buying in the home is big business with annual sales of millions of dollars. The rewards are attractive. Here's a sales convention of women who have taken on direct selling and have a chance to win a holiday in Hong Kong. Women's march towards equality and recognition has been a slow and difficult one, and it's by no means a new idea, for our great-grandmothers wanted to do their own thing too. International Women's Year demonstrates that we are playing an important role in politics, science, management and sales, and we haven't stopped yet, have we, girls?
Tragically, bushfires are part of every Australian summer. Their destruction is complete, yet human carelessness has been the cause of a majority of such fires. Back in the 1950s, the Blue Mountains were ravaged by their worst fires, while 71 people died in Victoria in 1939. And just 8 years ago, 62 lives were claimed in Tasmania when part of that state became a holocaust. And the menace is still as prevalent today as at any time. Recent events in various parts of Australia sadly illustrating the fact. Sometimes irreparable damage to life and property could be minimized by an awareness of each individual to the monstrous consequence of bushfires, one of Australia's greatest natural enemies. Another menace, the shark. The man-eating white pointer, the most vicious of the 25 known species to have attacked human beings. Extremely powerful swimmers, the white pointers are capable of speeds in excess of 40 miles per hour. The unique savagery of sharks, with their several rows of tearing, razor-sharp teeth, strike fear into the very heart of man. Yet there are those who persist in swimming in unprotected waters, thus placing their lives in jeopardy. Possessing a keen sense of smell and remarkable hearing, sharks are deadly given the slightest chance. So, don't give them one. Near Gosford, New South Wales, a replica of Sydney in the year 1810, aptly enough called Old Sydney Town. Lying quietly at anchor is a copy of one of the original vessels built in Australia, the brig Perseverance. Sydney's first observatory looked like this. Inside, it differs little from how it appeared in the early 1800s. The houses in those days were pretty Spartan affairs. Old Sydney Town, brainchild of Sydney architect Frank Fox and his family, carefully preserves the atmosphere and the physical appearance of its time. Nowhere in the streets will you find cars, but right through the settlement, life continues as it did more than 150 years ago. Carpenters, blacksmiths, all use tools of the period and the dress of the day. Convict chains. There's the old Bond store. The people of Old Sydney Town all wear period costume. Here, a soldier of the day uses convict labor to chop his firewood. One of the daily features of the early settlement was the public punishment of felons. Hauled through the streets to the stocks, this prisoner knows he faces a flogging. It's all an act, of course, but so well done you could be forgiven for thinking it's the real thing. And for the courageous damsel who chooses to interfere, there's more punishment to come. Only one way to cool her fiery temper. Then, for good measure, a quick rub over with a watermelon. A piece of our early history lives on at Old Sydney Town. Where, oh where, you may well ask, do all the flies go in winter? They go to the circus for training.
There was a shot, it made me jump when things went bump in the middle of a night. But as I got older, I started getting bolder. Now I'm feeling really proud of myself. The windows banged and the telephone rang, and in the middle of the night the little nightingale sang. But it's not so lonely when you know it's only a funny little fellow in brown.
Oh, Makwachi, will you see me through the night time for me? I feel better when you're there. Oh, Makwachi, I know you won't begrudge me just one little song to let me know you're there. Oh, Makwachi, will you see me through the night time for me? I feel better when you're there. Oh, Makwachi, I know you won't begrudge me just one little song to let me know you're there.
Recovering from a winter storm that wrought havoc to New South Wales beaches, Wonder plays host to the third Little Nippers Sydney Metropolitan Beach Championships. Nineteen teams participate, 1,500 individual competitors, including 15 state representatives, ranging in age from 5 to 13. Wonder, Elura, Bondi and Manly having the largest contingents. Administered mainly by former lifesavers, many of whose children are current competitors, the Little Nippers, or Juvenile Life-Saving Association's progress has been tremendous. Beach Flags is an event relished by the youngsters, appealing to their spirit of explosive action. A perennial favourite, the Beach Sprint. Events are staged according to age groups. There's only a few clubs without representation in each event. The start of the surf race, contested by 8-year-olds and upwards, distances ranging from 80 metres, 40 out and 40 back, to 140 metres for the 12 and 13-year-olds. Decades ago, many of the fathers and grandfathers of the juveniles were body surfers, and their handling of the long or bonker boards was often a thrilling spectacle. Originally constructed from any type of wood, the boards were shaped and sealed against sinking. So stable were they, they're still used today by senior lifesavers in rescue work. At 15 years of age, Edwina Kennedy rates as Australia's most exciting golfing prospect. 4 times New South Wales schoolgirls champion, Edwina's realising the remarkable potential she displayed even as an 8-year-old. Playing with specially made clubs, Edwina even then relished the competition provided by rivals in coaching clinics and members of the Wentworth Falls Club, to which she belonged. The high personal standards she sought as a golfer took her to the final of this year's New South Wales Junior title, in which Debbie Piper, 5 years her senior, defeats Edwina in a thrilling contest. A long, accurate hitter with keen touch, around and on the greens, Edwina practices whenever school commitments at New England Girls High allows.
Finishing in the top 16 of the state senior stroke play championship, Edwina becomes the youngest ever qualifier for the New South Wales title proper, decided by match play, in which she excels. Henry Tatana kicks off for St George as they challenge defending premiers Eastern Suburbs in the Rugby League Grand Final at Sydney Cricket Ground. Brass immediately drives play into St George's territory, where even in the opening minutes it's obvious their captain, Graham Langlands, is severely restricted in movement due to past injuries. East's anticipation and backing up brings its reward as halfback Johnny Mays crosses for the game's first try. Gaining a greater share of possession, East are prepared to open up play, but through high kicks, St George place pressure on their fullback Schubert. He's tackled behind East's line, St George winger Chapman swooping upon the loose ball. The Dragons claim he scores, but referee Bruyers rules Schubert had grounded the ball first, and it's no try. At half-time, East's lead 5-0. On the resumption, East keeps St George penned in their own half. Switched from lock to 5/8 for the match, Stephen sends Beaton charging through a now fragile defence. From dummy half, Mackay confuses the Dragons to score almost untouched under the posts. An ominous sign for St George, with East primed for all-out attack. The St George line is again threatened. Langlands and Drake holding Walters out. Mays attempts to swing the ball wide as Bailey and Tatana combine desperately to halt Mackay. But from Stevens' pass, Beatson crashes over as East take control. Their teamwork functioning perfectly, Coote sends Brass in for yet another try. Rarely has any team been as dominant in a grand final as East are proving today. With the St George defence shattered, Pickett bursts clear to take East further ahead. Bewildered by East's brilliance, St George are easily wrong-footed by Mays, who goes in for his second try. And fending off Billy Smith, Schubert climaxes a magnificent performance as he scores East's 8th try. They win the premiership for the second successive season by the record margin of 38-0, with possibly the greatest team they fielded in their 67 years history. Leading in the inaugural Rugby League International Championship, Australia kicks off against England at Sydney Cricket Ground. Jed Dunn putting England straight onto the offensive. New Zealand's Jack Percival is referee of what promises to be the most keenly contested of all first-round matches. Tight defence foils the English backline, who are often forced back into the rucks. Endeavouring to create a spreading and unsettling effect on Australia's defensive pattern, England employ kicking tactics, only to be countered by the safe hands and skill of Graham Langlands. Swift passing, and Rhodonicus feeds Beatson as Australia intelligently support the ball carrier. But Beatson's loose pass for Platts is swooped upon by Walsh, who beats Stevens to the ball. Millward sidesteps his way through to set up Dunn. A clever change of pace outmaneuvers Pickup, and winger Dunn flashes over for the game's first try. Their confidence jolted, Australia spin the ball seeking gaps, and they charge into England's quarter. A polished combination of halfback Rhodonicus and Beaton sends Coote dashing through confused defenders to score in the corner. And at half-time, Australia has a slender 7-5 lead. The ever-constructive Beatson lays the foundations of numerous attacks, allowing the backline to function, winger Rhodes taking advantage of the scope given him. Striving to make full use of their even share of possession, Australia are held by stern defence, and they're inclined to be flat-footed in attack. But perseverance and sure handling takes Australia again to within sight of England's line. Long passes fail to overcome fast-moving defence, Beatson being closely marked. But his remarkable anticipation sends Platts into position to give substitute winger Anderson a run to the corner for Australia's second try. Trailing 5 points and with time closing in, England makes a desperate effort. Replacing the injured Millwood, 5'8" Gill scores under the posts, giving fullback Fairbairn a simple chance for conversion. He's right on line, and it's a 10-all draw.